Recording in progress.
All right.
Cool.
So I think maybe we can get started, huh, Lee?
Yeah, let's go for it.
There's the hill.
Let's jump in.
So, last week we met our wonderful new dev captains. Most of them are here today. In the last kind of 7 days since our last meeting, we brainstormed, we came up with a set of responsibilities that really we want the community to focus on for the next 3 months at least, right? The top priority items. I'll share my screen in a minute. So dev captains have had a chance to look at that and kind of figure out which areas they want to focus on, their areas of strength, wherever they feel they're comfortable. But this list is hopefully going to keep growing. There's going to be more things to do. We're going to need more dev captains. And Lee, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind sharing the link to the sign up form just in case anyone else here decides to sign up and join this community? That would be great. So let me just share my screen and then we can talk about what those areas are. Oh man, sorry. I've just updated my OS and it wants a whole bunch of permissions. Lee, do you have would you mind sharing your screen? Do you have that document?
Yes, I do.
Would you mind?
I just need to pull it up. Yep. Is this Sean?
There we go. That's the one.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you. Right. So the list of responsibilities have been split into these 4 high-level areas. We have communications and developer updates. There's just overall developer education, onboarding, helping new folks learn about the protocol and the tools available to them. We have issues and bounties, right? You're probably mostly aware of how bounties work. We're planning to create many more bounties with the help of the dev community and the dev captains, and then just overall dev engagement with the developer community, attracting new developers, and really just understanding what their needs are. So our dev captains have gone through and you can see they've added their names. So I'd love to, pass this over to the dev captains just to, very briefly talk about, why you picked that area, what your plans are, and we can kind of take it from there. So do we have Aaron on the call? I don't think
Yes,
so.
sir.
Oh, you are there. Great. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, how's it going?
So do you want to talk about the weekly dev updates and what your kind of plans are?
Yeah, definitely. I plan on scouring some of the forum posts that we have per week and take some of that data, compile it, and then also take any of our meeting notes that we have and our general discussion in the dev captain Telegram chat and just compile that into something that is usable for our community to actually learn something, or if we want to highlight a new feature that we are doing or a significant upgrade, that could also go in there. I figure this would either be posted in multiple places or just on the forum. I'm probably leaning towards like multiple areas, like whether that's on Reddit or whatever site we want to choose.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a little difficult because there are so many channels, right? And just making sure we have coverage there. but yeah, I think it will organically dissipate that way. All right, great. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, feature harmony developers. Dylan, you've got some great ideas around interviews and blog posts. Do you want to give us an overview?
Totally. I'm in the middle of my call yesterday. I was planning ahead of time to talk to a couple of the developers that are making the dApps and all these other things that are in control of just the ecosystem around Harmony. And so I've been reaching out to them through Telegram, through Twitter, trying to get a hold of them through like any way I could, through Instagram. And sometimes there's no way of getting a hold of them. So if they see this right now in the recording, like reach out to me. I'm trying to set up an interview because I would love to make it transparent where you guys as the developer and your vision for blockchain and all these things, that communication gets bridged over to the community so that they better understand kind of what is the purpose of what it is that we're building. Not a whole lot of people really understood the whole sandbox idea that Adam came out with. But it's actually a really, really strong idea because coming from an educational point of view and teaching these things, a lot of people are confused as far as how can they take their own idea and bring it to the next level. Maybe they're a creative, maybe they're a developer who's just trying to start out. And so if they get a better understanding of what's going on in the ecosystem, they're going to know what to do versus what not to do. And yeah, so featuring them in a blog post, I'm asking them questions right now, things about like what got them started, what were their challenges, where did they do it, X, Y, and Z about, and also why are they doing it? Why did they choose to do it? Just some critical questions that got them to be the developer that they are today. And yeah, so I'm excited about doing that. And then and I have this site that I've made called Bogani, and it's kind of just like a portal, like a web portal for doing anything Harmony related. So I made the site. You can go there, you can go to the staking, you can go to the talk channel, you can go to the DaVinci chat. And I'm going to be adding more links over time, but the idea is that on a blog forum, I called it Fungible Blog. It's just that you go there and then you get to actually read about all these different dApps and applications. What is their use case so that we can start finally allowing the community to use these applications so that people start, getting business done. So, get the people engaged and let them know how to do it. Yeah.
Very nice. Awesome. That sounds really great. Thanks, Dylan. Seb, did you want to add anything to that in the same area?
Yeah, I think Dylan really got it. So I personally would see myself more like supportive for him if he wants to do some videos or stuff like that, that I help with editing, or also when we're writing a blog for feedback or stuff like that. I would love to help. But personally, I would like to be more active in the educational part of this. Yeah.
For sure, yeah, and we'll get to that, I guess, further down. Excellent. The next thing is we have this call, this weekly call that we have. This really should be run and managed by the developer captains. We're still kind of figuring out how to better organize this, how to have an agenda in place so everyone can view what we're going to be talking about. So that's going to be worked out shortly. So then moving on to the education and onboarding. The key thing is documentation, right? And that's the first place developers go to, and we're well aware that there's a lot of room for improvement within our documentations. We're actively working on improving those, but we absolutely need the help of the developer community to make those even better. Aaron, do you want to discuss your thoughts on how we can improve the docs?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I'm doing right now is just combing through every single page and running it through Grammarly as I read it. So this has brought maybe these things need to be linked, like whether it's an algorithm that we're discussing or whatever the subject matter is in the doc, like we could provide additional context and clarity, plus grammar improvements, and then also updating anything that is erroneous or outdated along the way is kind of been my approach so far. And I imagine there's going to be even like more things that cascade from those findings that will lead into tutorials or whatever the next steps are in this responsibility doc.
Absolutely. Sev, Devon, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'm not looking so much. I'm looking from a developer perspective. So, for example, I've been working on Solidity for about 3 to 5 months. I've played with it before, but a lot of times I have a confusion of I've done Binance, deployed my contracts. So I'm going through the documentation to see that as a new developer or someone new to the platform, I could get through the documentation and be able to do things without thinking out the box because the documentations are clear. And it brings up something that I see that we're all doing, including me, in the Dev Captain forum. We're posting there asking you guys questions, but the reality is we should be posting a talk forum because now we're keeping it to ourselves. And if that's a question that needs to be asked, there's other people that might be asking these questions. And I'm wondering, should we, if we get an answer from you guys in the forum, should we not post it into a public forum? Because now I can't, if we look at this documentation, if there was a question answered and we need to start adding that in a tutorial, I have to go through Telegram versus pulling that document, that answer out and finding out, is there other developers struggling with that same problem, or is it just us struggling? So I think we're doing that a lot in the captain's forum Telegram, where I think we're missing the other developers, because if that one question is only being answered to us. So again,
Right.
I'm combing through the docs to see that I can actually walk through, and later I'm doing videos so I can first ask the question if I run into a problem, and then I'll rewrite the docs the way I see, and then get peer review on the docs, especially from is it Seb doing the grammar, not my. So that peer review, like, hey, I threw it in, and he's looking like, Devon, this doesn't sound right from a Grammarly perspective. But I'm looking more of, can we do this? Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and I was able to get through that documentation.
Nice, yeah, and Aaron touched on wanting to kind of look at the grammar and kind of just the pace and the language there. So
yep,
it would be great to have both technical and structural eyes on the documentation. And Devon, you're the perfect person for this, right? You're starting out. You've got a background in it, but so any challenges you run into are probably typical of what any other developer would run into, right? In your position. So I think you've got that advantage of knowing, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing here. Something's missing, and I need to improve that. Totally. And also don't forget, the documentation is going to be a living, breathing thing, right? So any improvement is fine, and it'll probably just keep morphing and improving over time. So don't hesitate to make your additions, and it'll probably completely change in a month from now as kind of you will learn more.
Yep.
Great. Okay, and Devon, you also touched on tutorials, right? That's the next step for you. Once you have the documentation in place, the next thing is actually build, right? And kind of teach people how to build. Exactly. Do you want to talk about what your ideas are around tutorials?
Well, I know we have a bunch of tutorials. We have some, but there's a bunch of tutorials on the Ethereum site. And due to the fact that we do have the EVM, I would actually probably replicate those tutorials, but to ensure that we're using one specific things, like I know I'm doing a video. I had a problem with using the one wallet and it wasn't clear, but I created my own contract, which was that needs an address. And if I use the one address, all the documentation, it don't work. So I got to convert it to a ETH address in order to deploy my contract. If in the constructor is asking for an address. So I know I need to do a video so Ganesh could actually see what I was talking about. So those things like that, I'm looking at those tutorials. I'm looking at other tutorials that I've seen out in the other places like maybe Binance that where our integration with Chainlink, those type of tutorials. That's what I'm trying to come up with. But initially, I want to make sure, just from a newbie perspective, you're technical, but can you take this documentation? And we do have a video up there, but the video goes so quick where, I'm a big believer in when learning, people like to be told exactly what to do. Even from a marketing, push this button here, buy here, because assuming that I have this knowledge because they've learned, now if I take it and do the things that I would do in Ethereum, it might not work the same way if I start doing my own out of the box. So those are the tutorials that I'll focus on. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah. And that's absolutely right. I think someone who's coming from the Ethereum ecosystem, that they're looking at this through a different lens compared to someone who's just learning from scratch.
Yep.
So I think it's good to be mindful about what those lenses are and to maybe cater some of those tutorials based on, hey, what's it like to come from Ethereum? What's it like to come from whatever, any other ecosystem, or just starting out? So I think there's not going to be a shortage of ideas around tutorials and things that we can actually put out there.
And there's just a host of work we could do. So it won't be overnight,
Of course.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can I just add one thing here?
Of course. Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
It seems that the low-hanging fruit would be to write like a tutorial how to migrate Ethereum up to Harmony. And it would be really useful, I think, in long term, because for those Ethereum developers, they probably already have their own dApps that they just want to migrate. So just like be clear about what is different in Harmony. I think it has to be, a lot of thought has to be put into that. Like what exactly is different? What do I need to kind of keep in mind? So I think this is a good point.
That's right. And there is this I love. Let me just share this link with you. This is the main Ethereum developers tutorial portal. There's a ton of tutorials here. I would love to see something like this for Harmony. And what's really great is that, all of these contracts technically can be very easily ported across, right? We're ERC20 compatible. So there's no reason why people who've put all this hard work creating these tutorials can't be just ported across. So it would be really great to have some tutorials around, okay, let's take an existing tutorial project, an Ethereum project, and let's see how we can, with some small changes, deploy that onto the Harmony testnet, right? But I would love to see something like this, where you have this broad range of tutorials for different areas, different frameworks, UI frameworks, and contract types.
I have one question from the development perspective, and I do hear we've put in like, hey, let's do the full dApp. I'm kind of in the space, and I'm looking, I'm on ETH Hack Money, and even from my real work, you have back-end developers and you have front-end developers, right? If I'm going to do a dApp, I'm going to bring somebody who's an expert in UI. But just focusing, there's a lot of work where we look at Solidity developers. And even when we're asking and when we're trying to form these teams, we're looking at, hey, are you a Solidity developer? are you a UI developer? Because now the time to write these contracts takes so much, I mean, to write a full app takes so much longer if you're not full, quote unquote, full stack developer. And my focus is mostly on the back end, maybe looking at the security perspective. And I will probably pull out some DApp, but there's a bunch of tutorials I looked in the space where we have very complicated contracts just with Solidity. So hopefully we can get some help on, if we're doing the tutorials, if someone's actually a UI developer, we could get these tutorials out so much quicker versus piling that on one person to just be an expert in all stages.
Right. Exactly. And Tony's not here. Sev, Aaron, anything to add on the tutorial side?
No, I think all that. Oh, sorry, Sev, you can go first.
Yeah, no, yeah, I just wrote in the chat. I don't know if it's a good idea if we make like, maybe not now, but at a later point, like some academy.harmony.com one, where you just jump on and then you're really, yeah, you're really brought in, and step by step you will show how you build your first app. Like Devin told us that we're trying to really show them how it's done, like one step.
Yeah, I love that.
I like that idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yep. That's a great idea.
We actually have a link like that in one of the sections. It's like harmony1./school or something, and it leads to another site that I'm unfamiliar with. So there was that idea present somewhere on the site, but I couldn't tell you what it's about.
Yeah, so this is a really good opportunity to consolidate some of these links and you know, really organize documentation and the onboarding experience. Nice. So moving on to tools, Adam and Sev put their names down here. You guys want to just touch on what your plans are around improving some of the ecosystem tools?
Sure. So I think I have actually questions first. So I've noticed that in this repo, maybe we can bring it up on the screen. It's the link dev ecosystem tools. And it will be easier to talk about it.
Lee, would you mind opening that dev ecosystem tools link, please? Thank you.
All right. So if we scroll down to the dApps section, I've noticed that I'm not sure when it was updated last time. It was 5 months ago, but it seems that the only thing here is the official sort of Harmony, or maybe like the stuff that came out from core team, or like at least from community close to core team. My question is, can we add dApps that are, you know, like, don't want to throw names around, but we know what is the main exchange at the moment.
Yeah,
So
100%.
with that, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this
right.
was most likely, it's probably predates me as well, probably mostly done by Ganesha,
Yes.
who couldn't make it.
Absolutely.
Right.
If I can quickly add, absolutely, Adam, this was created only as a placeholder boilerplate when we started, when we launched the Ethereum compatibility. So this is exactly what we need to update and build.
I think I've noticed a lot of community engagement, and I think it's awesome to have those infographics, you know, like those that you throw around Twitter and just kind of chill with. So it could be automated. It could possibly be that you add logo and the name and the link, and that graphic is created so that every time we update this, when there's a new project, that doesn't have to be this dance between graphic designers, and it is kind of like a project, because you would have to have some kind of rendering engine. I mean, it's not hard. I think I've done something similar that basically just adds those items in a nice presentable way.
I would suggest being very careful what you're adding on the main Harmony GitHub as dApps, because So far, there's been a lot of, rugs, let's put it that way. And not only that, but some validators have actually shared on social media, validators that are very well known in the community, and they've shared these projects that rugged. So I would be very careful about what you're putting on the main GitHub.
Yeah, 100%. That was my first question as well. That's why I noticed that here are kind of those core team kind of approved things. So so yeah, this is another kind of another topic that should be addressed.
Until we also get a validate contract option in our Explorer, this is going to be very difficult to do.
Well, on that note, there's some of you that have been tasked with community outreach. Something we've talked to the validators about, especially the young new ones who are trying to get a foothold and get recognized so that they can attract delegations. They've been creating those infographics you guys are talking about. So they would be an excellent resource that this core team could reach out to help keep those updated. I mean, if we task 1 or 2, maybe 3 to do the research on a project, go find out, make sure they've got whatever prerequisites we require, the check marks are done, and then another one can make an infographic. Just there's a pool of resources there that we can reach out to.
Right.
I had one question regarding that. Is that something that we as the dev or the dev captain teams would even want to be related? Because here's my only problem, kind of like you guys said, once we start putting it that one officially is saying this DApp, if you didn't do it, if we don't own the code, or if core team doesn't own the code, you don't really have any control over that. And now you're co-signing and saying, yep. And if they start changing things, how do we, I guess I'm always concerned if it's a third party and putting it on the core.
I would say we don't.
Project.
What you're saying, Devon, is if they rug, who's reliable, right?
Right. We promoted it on Harmony's GitHub.
Right. And that's why I think that it's best if we reach out and connect with the community themselves and do that in a decentralized manner. Not even necessarily rely on one person or one team, but a group of people from the community who are doing that research, and allow the community to provide that trust factor. Why do we have to do it as a core? I mean, if we're going to decentralize, let's do that.
I mean, something like what Dylan has, the website, right? Like Bogani.net, like something that's created not by Harmony directly, but by a third party.
Right.
Something completely, it's permissionless. So everyone can promote their stuff there. And if it's a rug, I mean, yeah, no one's reliable for it. It's an open website. So Harmony, it's not to blame.
Yeah, and if I could just add something, the end goal here is for Harmony to become 100% community driven, right? So this takes time, obviously, right? We're just getting started building out, the community is growing. But yes, Harmony as a core team is aiming to become almost irrelevant, right? This needs to be 100% community driven. So for a portal that lists all the latest dApps, that really should be owned by the community, not associated with Harmony as an organization. And because like you said, anyone can build anything they want. There could be scams, there could be rug pulls, there could be a number of things, and we definitely don't want for that to reflect badly on the protocol as a whole. So yeah, I'm definitely in favor of letting the community own that piece, the directory or whatever it is.
I could see Harmony or this core team creating the resource for the community to use, create a web page with a disclaimer saying, hey, you guys have validated this through a thumbs up checkmark method, and the research on these 8 or 10 or however many prerequisites, we've done that as a community. Here's the feedback, here's who supplied it. And then just a general thumbs up like you see on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko. What do you think of this chain today? You could do the same thing with dApps. And so that resource I could see being somewhat centralized and provided by the the team or a core group like the group here, but the input and the actual certification of a project, I agree that it's best done by the community.
Great.
So coming back to the repo, should that be even part of the repo then? That dev ecosystem tools.
Probably not. And Bruno just shared a link that he put together himself, right? Bruno, do you want to just tell us a little bit about this?
Yep. Yeah, I can just add some things. Yeah, this website, I was creating this website last 2 years. I was adding the apps that I was feeling that they were stable enough to be there in this website. Of course, this website I started initially was for validators. I was trying to collect some information, and that's why I keep this name harmonyvalidators.com. So I was trying to see if there are some reliable validators to add to the website. Then I found, or we have done a great bounty, that we create a platform for that vision. So I then start to use this to collect the apps. So there's some kind of information documentation. Let's say it's a very rough, let's say a website with links. But yeah, this is you see it's completely community, or let's say I was doing this like a hobby, not that was not my first thought was not to put this in a big level, but maybe we can create some similar to this that we can.
This is fantastic, Bruno. I'm surprised I've never come across it. It's hard to find, I guess, but yeah, it would be great to have this or something like this, and maybe allowing folks to contribute to it, right? Have a mechanism, maybe through a pull request or something where people can keep updating those links.
Yeah. So just to add very fast, sorry. For example, Viper. I had Viper just weeks ago, and so I was trying to add this already months, and I was not feeling confident to add Viper because I was not. So the developer, I was not knowing who was the developer.
Right.
That's why I'm sometimes I'm feeling that okay, the app looks great, but if we don't have confidence with the team, we should not put it there. And then as the community growth and we see, okay, the platform looks great, the community as well, developer was very or still very active. So then I add this app.
Right.
So maybe that's one of the prerequisites to be listed is the application needs to exist and develop their own community amount of time, 6 months, 9 months, a year, something like that. And that site is a trusted source that they happen to be flied on the site. And Bruno, love what you've done there. We linked it in Harmony, by the way.
Nice, Matt. Your audio cut out briefly, but I think what you were saying was that there needs to be some kind of, I don't know, grace period or auditing flow where we can make sure it's a legit project and then kind of add it.
Yep, and possibly even a time constraint where they have to do their own work and attract their own followers for the first 6 months or something like that, and exist in our community for an extended period of time before they're listed.
Agreed.
That makes total sense. Can I just come back to this repo then? So we are happy to kind of segregate those two things by like tools that are just purely technical, and the dApps would, the category there would probably be deleted, right?
I think that makes sense, right? Because maybe I wish Ganesha was here to talk about what his intentions were, but I agree that dApps are going to be numerous, right? They're going to be created by the community. There's going to be good ones. There's going to be bad ones. They're probably going to be scams. But we should probably remove that from the core repo and just let the community own and decide what needs to go in these in these lists.
It's a good idea for like a bounty to create like some kind of DApp that would basically make voting for trust of a project.
Yeah,
but
like
again,
a
it could easily be spammed with from people of that project to kind of
adding
put it
junk
up.
projects.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can kind of extend Bruno's portal somehow.
So
But yeah,
let's
let's
a solution for that. I have a solution for that I shared with Pops. And this is something that could bridge DAOs, right? It was more of a community side DAO in the Houses of Harmony we envisioned, which would be kind of like an ambassador program. But the prerequisite to join and earn through that project would be to purchase an NFT that identifies you as an individual. It doesn't necessarily need to cost $1,000, but it needs to cost something enough to off-put people from creating dozens or hundreds of accounts and spamming, right? So they log into that DApp or whatever it is via Web3, present their House of Harmony NFT, whichever house it's from, and then that allows them to vote.
So I guess I have, I'm a little lost. We have a community DAO that we're working on, and maybe we should have a marketing DAO. And of course we could do marketing, but I'm not understanding why would a dev team be taking up anything that has to do with outside DApp? I'm coming in as a developer. I want to get some tools work. We might have other developers. They have questions that, so to me, is much more important than, and I could be wrong, much more important than if we spend 15, 20 minutes on a marketing, how do we market it, this DApp, we lose the value of ensuring that the developers' questions are being answered. Because honestly, someone's DApp wouldn't be, unless they're going to show me their source code, wouldn't be something me coming in as a developer really care about. And maybe I'm wrong understanding what our roles are and what we focusing on, but it seems like we're kind of we're a little spread it out across.
I guess, my take on this is that, this is an open platform. Anyone can build anything they want, right? We definitely don't want to be gatekeepers.
Right.
But if we are going to have some kind of portal that's owned by the community, and we want to ensure it's high quality, that we're weeding out the scam dApps, then that's kind of where we come in, right? It's like, you're fine. You can go ahead and build any app you want, but if you want to be featured on this portal, which has a lot of traffic and people, you get a lot of exposure for your dApp, then, these are the conditions, right? We need to make sure the community reviews it, make sure that, it's been 6 months and you've got usage, whatever those guidelines are. And, this might be a good segue to maybe Sahil and Lee. Is it worth talking about the developer DAO here and how that could potentially tie into, how we own this part of the community, or how we manage, the community manages itself?
Yeah, so I think you guys all here are very involved, and like even from the beginning, we mentioned it a couple of times, but probably haven't talked about explicitly what it would mean. But basically, the entire project, as Giv mentioned, is going to be run by the community, and we envision multiple DAOs that will be running the project, right? So there is already a validator DAO, and their mandate is to get as many validators to participate in the network, even 1,000 validators with easy one-click deploy, various things that is on their mandate. And we want to do one for the developer DAOs, we want to do a DAO for the developers, and the mandate actually is already on this page, which you guys have already done, like the hard work. And the Harmony Foundation will basically fund the developer DAO. And we envision that maybe some of you would even want to stay on and run for one of the governors. So most DAOs in Ethereum ecosystem have either at least 3 out of 5 people sign as multi-sig signers holding a multi-sig wallet with funding that then they would decide with the community how to use that funding. Hopefully, like for the developer DAO, we can even have 9 people, or I've seen more, but I think 9 is probably a good number. In terms of like 5 out of 9 or 6 out of 9 people will sign to verified decisions. So if you look at the community and validator DAO, there's already a process where people nominate themselves to be one of the governors, and then the community will vote on who they think are the top 5, top 7, top 9, however many number that they start with. And people on the governors should actually be compensated as well, meaning the folks on this call, if you want to continue to engage with the community as like either part-time, full-time, usually what we've seen is DAOs have probably one person who's the lead. So that person takes, spends a little more time on it, but there's a whole range, right? This is a really new concept, the concept of DAOs. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but like this year, you can really see DAOs scaling on all the ecosystems, whether it's Ethereum, us, the conversations has just been really advanced and growing very quickly, and like they're even coming into mainstream. So the idea of the DAO, of the developer DAO, is that the dev captains would basically be the crew that would kind of get it going. And it's really up to you guys. And any of the dev captains can run to be one of the governors, and even setting up the compensation for the governor, how that would work. There's some good examples. Like we won't say exactly, hey, you guys need to do this and pay yourself this much and these hours, etc. But we can give you some guidance and examples. Like there's one good example, which I'll mention, is the Aave grant DAO, which obviously Aave is much bigger than us. They have they have a pretty big grant DAO right now. But we can use some of these examples and learn from them as we go to set up like a more sustainable, and the DAOs, actually we envision they'll be sustainable after the initial kickstart from the foundation, right? Like the developer DAO can easily figure out ways to generate revenue from all the tutorials or some of the other things that it's doing as well, so that it'll keep growing. So one more thing, one example is the community DAO itself actually has a revenue generating source, which is right now they can sell subdomain NFTs. So like when you see the give.crazy.one, when people are buying those subdomain NFTs from crazy.one, the ones that people purchase with, that's actually going straight to the community DAO wallet. And that'll be, right now we're holding it, but that'll be transferred to the community DAO. So these are just some of the things that are possible on the roadmap in the next coming months, basically.
Nice. So we have about 15 minutes left. I want to make sure we get through everything. I'm seeing just in the chat here, as we're talking through these various areas, I'm seeing a bunch of ideas for bounties. And I think this is how we come up with great bounties to create through these conversations. So let's make sure that we are constantly thinking about what we can add to make things better and easier. So this DApp portal, for example, that would be a really great one if someone wants to run with that. But the next section, issues and bounties, the two main areas are identifying issues that developers are experiencing, being able to address those, and some of those may lead to the creation of bounties to address some of those issues, or they could just be brand new ideas, right? Could be dApps, going back to the developer DAO, for example, one of the sources of funding could be some of these developer tools, right? There could be a dApp where, I don't know, if you want to add your dApp to the portal. You have to pay a fee for, or maybe for voting, and maybe that goes directly into the developer DAO that's going to be used for future projects, right? Like, you know, you should really be thinking about it that way. But yeah, we want to create a ton of bounties, and we need your help. So a couple of folks here, Adam, and the rest have added their names here. Do you guys want to just quickly talk about, Bruno, do you want to go first, talking about, you know, you've got a lot more experience with creating bounties, what your approach is going to be, and how we can really maximize this,
yeah, sure.
this area.
Yeah, so we see a lot of ideas. And the next step, and that we DAT captains will do, is to try to bring these ideas to a documentation like an application for bounties, to follow all the process. Okay, this is what are the requirements, and after we met these requirements, we go to the next step for the votation, because I see that we need to vote between us which apps are, or applications for bounties are the best to invest, because we are not so big now. We need to focus in the ones that are more interesting currently, and then in the future we will scale. But yeah, that's my first idea, is to try now to collect these great ideas, try to put this in a paper, in a documentation with all the parameters that we need to go to the next step. Yeah.
Nice. Anyone else? We're talking about bounties.
Sure. So I wrote one and it got accepted. It's great. Thank you guys for all the support. My question is, since we agreed on kind of incentive for that, since now we are taking a little bit more different approach, that we'll have a team that will do that, it is not kind of fair for them. Like it doesn't make sense with the previous agreement, sort of about the 10% of those who ride the bounties. So I wouldn't want to be in a position that I take the bounty from idea of someone else and I put it in a nice way, and you know, it's a bit confusing here.
I see.
Thanks, Adam. Maybe I can add. Thanks, Adam, for talking about this, because I have also the feeling that in the beginning, in the first meeting that we had, that I have the feeling that all you guys think that you will develop the apps. Sure, you will. You can do this, but if we want to scale as we want, what we will do is we will control the teams that will create the programs, the apps. So if I'm developing an app, I can only developing one in 1 or 2 months. But if I'm controlling, I can develop 100 apps, because 100 teams will be working in this. And this is the only way that we can scale, is that we, dev captains, we will control the teams that are developing these apps. We will raise the applications in Gitbook or GitHub, so in all the platforms for the bounties. But the idea is that the ones that are working in the program or in the apps, they will receive the money, not us. Sure, if you say that, oh, I'm spending a lot of time, then we need to talk and see, okay, maybe you need some funds to pay your hours. But it's, as you said, it's not fair. You receive 10% and just controlling the guys. So yeah.
So that brings up a question I had, and my apologies, I dropped off. You guys already addressed this, is how do we continue funding this DAO down the road? We can't rely on the foundation to just keep giving money and putting it into the pot so that we can continue having bounties and pay for people's time to run the DAO itself. One thought there is it would be kind of working hand in hand with the community or marketing DAOs, is as we give bounties, there's an expectation that maybe they give back to the community after a certain amount of time, or that could be an incentive. Hey, if you want priority advertising through the marketing DAO, in the community DAO, then you must contribute to the developers DAO. And real quick, one other thing, which is probably going down a rabbit hole, side note, but I just want to make sure that something is put into place for all DAOs. I think it's very important that we have a way for either the community or the governors themselves to perform a vote of no confidence. It's part of the reason why I haven't really taken a bigger role in any of these DAOs is my job requires me to travel 50% of the time. And when I'm traveling, I am not useful. I can't really help just because of the hours I have to work. So if somebody comes on board because they want to, and they're in that sort of situation, how do we pull them out of the DAO and replace them?
Yeah. Lee, do you want to maybe discuss some of your thoughts on those kind of dynamics?
The DAO should have its own way of doing that. Each DAO could have its own way. So one of the things that we would suggest again is that each DAO would write an operating agreement or some agreement that they all agree to and the community agree to, and there's a way of, you know, either replacing governors or having some, of course, checks. Like the way, I guess each DAO is almost going to be like its own country in that it'll set its own constitution and way of doing things, either a country or a company, right? And so I think Dylan's posting about is like, let me see, our articles of agreement. Yeah. So yeah, so I would say, Matt, you're right that but we won't say every DAO needs to have it this way, right? Like it's not our place to actually say. We want a lot of experimentation. If you look at, I guess I always go back to Ethereum ecosystem, right? Because they're the most mature, but looking at their DAOs, like there's every variation you can think of. And later on, like, right, the foundation will bootstrap, like kickstart. That's the idea. We will help, especially for the ones that we really care about, like the developer DAO. We'll provide some initial funding and kickstart it, and like hopefully it can figure things out along the way. And by the way, it's possible that in the future, right, there will be more niche, like developer related DAOs, but let's say like someone's very passionate just about like technical tutorials, like they could just form that and then as a DAO, and they can sell their own technical tutorials like Crypto Zombie does, or you know, something like that, right? That could be their sole product process, and off they go, right? They don't need anything from the foundation, in fact. And however they choose to do their own governance should be up to them. Yeah, it really even shouldn't be up to us. Like, we don't envision funding every DAO. Of course, I mean, by the way, there's like, you know, Venom is a DAO, Mochi is a DAO. All these things have basically like DAO mechanisms on Snapshot already. So, and they're completely independent. So yeah, I guess the answer to your question is long way of saying the DAOs, we think that's a good practice, but yeah, the DAOs themselves should decide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The team, the foundation, and even the DAOs, well, the DAOs themselves need to, but they shouldn't. It almost might necessarily, as far as the template, of people in many different DAOs, some of which the foundation is bootstrapping. So if the foundation is bootstrapping a set of guidelines, maybe that, hey, your DAO articles of association or whatever we want to call them, they need to include these 5 or bootstrap you.
Yeah,
that's seems like it would make sense and be a good way to protect those DAOs to make sure that they have longevity. They're not going to fall apart because there's only 5 members or 7 members, and then one of those 7 members decides to start trying to collude with people so that they can gain access to the funds. How do the honest governors go, you know what? No, this guy's shady. We need him out. So we need to vote him out now before he causes problems.
Yeah, these are all very real problems. Like DAOs are a new structure. The human problems will always exist, right? Like whether you call it a company, a village, a collective, a country, every country has their corruption.
Can I comment on something like that really quick? There's there's always like a lot of fear when it comes to people organizing themselves in a free manner. And people, if they're doing it on their own and they have like a core mission, whether it be, you know, a lot of them you see like DAOs essentially are like religions, people collecting themselves together, and they have some kind of pastor who is like saying, you know, X, Y, and Z, do this, come here, organize these events. And then there are people who have a certain set of skills who are like, well, I'm really good at project managing, and I'm really good at marketing the idea, and I'm really good at doing these things. So, you know, my point is that since we're doing these DAOs for Harmony, and we're essentially creating really nice fitted pockets in the entire ecosystem of Harmony, they have their marketing, they have their community DAO, all such and foremost. And I see the whole point of creating a list, like a 10 list of, you know, here are what are the expectations that Harmony has for its ecosystem, because we wouldn't want it to be arbitrary. We wouldn't want it to kind of like break the code of what we as core developers believe in our own product. Like your guys' vision matters a lot, and how you have seen and why you set forth the ability for us as a community to create these organizations that are completely free range. So having like a kind of like a code of honor almost of like, this is what we would hope that you, the community, like take, and then you can potentially even, yeah, like we create these bounties that allow these, your Harmony DAOs to have a set of tools that organize people in the best way possible, so they don't have to keep jumping in and going, all right, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll try to figure it out as best as I can, but they'll never be on Twitter because they spend 50 hours at work, right? So it'd be better to have like, say an application that any of these new DAOs that Harmony comes up with gets to utilize an application that we, the core developers and the developer captains, we can come up with a philosophy with how that actually works, where it's one, it fits with our ethics, with how more people can create their own DAO and we don't have like direct control of that, and how people can kind of create their own ideas of what a DAO would look like in their hands by giving them this application and going, here are just some of the tools for getting your idea to be solidified. And then you can follow the code of honor that Harmony does have for itself that will essentially mature these DAOs so that they can have their own kind of backbone that is solid, and that all the DAOs would essentially agree without disagreeing. They'll all have like this key focus. They're like, we made our own organization, but we're super tight with the artist DAO. We're super tight with the marketing DAO. We're super tight with these guys. So if we ever did need to, we have the same application that we can bounce off of. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on that because you got me thinking a lot last night. We met about how this would work and how do other people make it work. And it's actually a fascinating subject in general just to talk about. It's super podcast worthy. You know, it's how does this work? How do people do this thing that people don't normally do? It's a cool topic to actually just discuss. And I think that's what we can do here is actually come up with some of those key points of what that would look like in the future. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Thanks, Devon. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dylan. Yeah, lots to discuss there. I want to make sure that we wrap up in time. Mario, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there's any validators here that I can approach in private.
I don't see any validators here. I don't think so. Oh, Kruger is, yeah.
I'm a validator.
Matt as well.
I'm
There we go.
also from POps.
There we go.
All right. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, feel free to reach out. Everyone, thank you so much for making it a great session. I know we didn't go through the whole list. The last item really was just general community engagement, right? I think everything we touched on relates to being responsive and being kind of plugged into what the community is wanting and needing.